WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American living in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today's the third whiskey here from KO Distilling in Manassas, Virginia, Bare Knuckle Straight Bourbon Whiskey. So this is the third of the series. I did the American Wheat Whiskey, and I also did the American Rye Whiskey here from Bare Knuckle. And very important, it says straight bourbon whiskey. It has to be 4 years, not to state the age. If it does state the age, it can do that between the ages of 2 and 4. And look what it says here. It says 24 months. A 24-month-old bourbon, straight bourbon from America. 70% corn, 20% wheat, and 10% malted rye. Into malted barley. I can't read my own writing. I'm sorry. So, double distilled. They have a 550-gallon pot and column still combination, 45%. I paid 54 euros and 90 cents, which calculates into about $62 for this bottle. Whiskey base number 112428. And this actually arrived in the market in December of 2017. 2013, they incorporated the company. Bill Carson, K, together with John O. Mara O, KO Distilling. And John visited the Moonshine Distillery University in Louisville, Kentucky. And 2005, they built the building. And since then, they've been distilling. So if they can supply a 2-year-old whiskey in December of 2017. It actually says it here. This was bottled on December 13th, 2017, which I really like. I must admit, KO Distilling, you're doing a wonderful job with transparency. The only thing I don't know would be exactly what type of cask. Yes, they're new white oak charred cask from Kentucky. What char level would be a nice thing to know, one of the very few things. And if you're allowed to tell me also what type of barrels. Are they from Independent Stave Company, SC, or are they from the other, I'm not going to name anything else. That would be very, very great. The wheat, the grain you get here, the corn, the wheat, and also the malted barley all comes from Virginia. Very, very well done. 45%, and you do have a wonderful, wonderful story behind this. Two guys went to the Merchant Navy back then in 79, I think, if I remember it correctly, and you stayed in touch the entire time. You both retire, you go to class reunion, they both talk about this idea, you make it happen after retirement. Both were in the military sector where you supplied and helped the military, so it's a very, very important thing. And if I read here the back of the barrel, it says, for ages, women like men have battled for family, to make a living, for rights, and for just causes. Like the American female fighter from the early 1900s, who is on our front label. Yes, it is a female. I didn't even notice that, by the way. Wow, that was very, very obvious. Some have ventured into the ring to apply their pugilistic skills, to fight, to win, to advance, and to prevail. For all those women who work hard every day, we salute you. Wow. Now, the KO Distilling has created Bare Knuckle Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It is a strikingly smooth, handcrafted wheat bourbon sourced with local grains, which are milled, mashed, fermented, and double distilled in small batches, aged for at least 2 years in charred new American oak. It is KO's fourth whiskey. We hope women and men alike find it to be a knockout spirit like we do. So, the first spirit was the wheat, the second spirit was the rye, the third spirit was here the bourbon. Oh, yeah, they had a white whiskey. I forgot about that. I'm not sure if that's a real whiskey, but they call it white whiskey, so why not? All right, very, very good. Let's see what the nose says. I am a little disappointed, to say the least. All right, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing I did in my German video. I'm going to compare the wheat whiskey to the bourbon because I did not like the wheat whiskey. I actually failed this. My scale is a 1, which is the A in America, which is why haven't you bought it? The B, buy it. C, you can buy it. D, don't have to buy it. And the F is why was this made? And I gave this an F. And to be very, very honest, this is almost as bad as this, or maybe even worse. I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, Bill. I'm going to, in about 3.5 minutes, explain something, all right? So, in both of these, I get this roasted pumpkin seed. I don't know why. I get that like the pumpkin oil. I don't know if I ever used it before to cook, but both of these have a lot. And I must admit that on the nose, I'm going to actually say that the bourbon straight whiskey is a tiny little bit worse. I don't like either of them. All right, let's try it. First of all, both 45%, 12 months. Sorry, 24 months, 12 months. Young, metallic. I've tried a lot of whiskeys in my life. I'm in England, in my German videos, I've done over 1,000 different reviews of whiskeys online. I've done another 150 interviews with people who make, sell, produce, distribute, and anything else with whiskey. I'm sorry. This just not is my. It's just not my ball game. This is not what I expect whiskey to taste like. As I said, maybe put an ice cube in it. It might change, but I'm not doing that. It's very interesting that at the beginning, this wheated whiskey is much smoother than the bourbon, but towards the end, that badness, that youthfulness kicks back in. So I failed this, and this is actually worse. I'm sorry. I don't do this to make people angry. I don't do these videos because I want to trash on your company. I do them because I bought the bottle, I want to review them, and I give an honest review, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. So, now, my 3 minutes are almost up. What could KO Distilling do to solve this problem? Now, I think what they need is someone who really understands much, much better than Bill and John do. Two retired guys who had this little bit of a spleen, this little bit of an idea, hey, let's start a distillery. They need someone who actually knows how to distill. And not just a little bit, but really knows how to distill. If this is December 2017, this was distilled then in December of 2015. This was put out on the market here in November of 2016. And so this was basically distilled in November of 2015. They started building the building in 2015. So this is the very, very first spirits that actually were ever produced there. And they, excuse me for saying so, they rushed them onto the market a little bit maybe immaturely. Now, you can let them sit in the barrel for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years for all I matter. But I think the secret is actually more of the distilling process. I've had White Dog. I've had younger spirits that have tasted better than this. And so what I would recommend, what you should do, and this is the good part, congratulations, hire somebody to become the master distiller. Welcome, Ryan Hendricks. You are the new master distiller here at KO Distilling. You've had experience at Cedar Ridge, Iowa. Yay, I've tasted some of your products. Excellent stuff, by the way. You've worked a little bit with Jim Beam as well. Excellent. You have the experience. You were at the Moonshine Distilling University, but you've had many, many, many years of experience actually distilling. And you're bringing all that experience now to the KO Distilling, and I expect in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to notice an enormous increase in the quality of these whiskeys. So basically what I think is I'm a little bit too early to the game. Just to give an example, you might not see this ever in the States. This is the very first batch number 1 single pot still of Teeling. This was a 6,000 bottle release, Ireland only. I bought it, brought it over here to Europe, Germany. And this is a 3-year-old and a couple day old whiskey. Blue for the colors of Dublin. And I didn't like it either. It was in virgin oak, it was an ex-bourbon, it was an ex-wine cask. They tried their best to make the 3-year-old Irish whiskey taste like a 12-year-old redbreast, which you just cannot do. And this is the problem. And so even I was very disappointed with the first release of Teeling. And that's what happens. That's what happens at the beginning. You're a little bit disappointed at what they actually produce. Teeling is a company I've been drinking now for years. But of course, all their products were distilled in Cooley, where they've had almost 20 years of experience then of distilling. And now the first run, the first batches, the first spirits that they take off those new stills is not going to be as good as something that has been there and processed and optimized for 25 years and had 12 years in the cask to mature. See Redbreast Castering 12-year-old. This is the same. I am positively sure that the learning curve of KO Distilling is going to look like this. They're going to get there. Unfortunately, I was a little bit too early. My question of the day is, where were you a little bit too early to the whiskey game? What distilleries from Scotland that are popping up, from Ireland that are popping up, from the 1,200 different distilleries, craft distillers in the States that have popped up, where have you bought a bottle? Where have you tried a spirit and went, sorry guys, it's not just what it should be yet? Write it down in the comments. That would interest me. And one thing would be for me, Teeling Distillery. There are a couple others also from Scotland where I've tried and was like, wow, and I paid, like, it's a $200 bottle, and it's just like, no. And that's one of the problems we're having at the moment with all the boom in the whiskey industry, that every new distillery can actually, the first bottle of the first batch that was released, 100 bottles, it wasn't this design, it was a different design, it went for £10,000 because it was for charity and it was the first bottle of the first batch and it was a collector's item. Will that whiskey be worth £10,000 ever? No, but it's just the sentimental value of that bottle. All right, thank you very much for watching. And once again, if Bill or John ever watches this video, my personal apologies. My goal was not to bash your company or your products. My goal was to give an honest review of my viewpoint of your whiskeys, and I do expect it to be much better in the future. And I think Ryan's really going to help you with this. Thank you very much. All the best. Dislike my video if necessary. Subscribe, tell others about this crazy American over here tasting rare and exotic whiskeys, even bourbons from the States. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. All the best. Bye-bye.